She was standing outside the tallest iron gate she had ever seen in her life. Her feet were bare, her dress was torn at the hem and stained with dirt from sleeping on concrete for the past 3 weeks. Her belly was round and heavy, almost 7 months along. She could barely stand straight, and in her hands she was holding a wallet, a brown leather wallet stuffed with more cash than she had ever touched in her 26 years of living. The name on the driver's license inside that wallet belonged to one of the wealthiest men in the entire city, and the security guards standing on the other side of that gate were already reaching for the phone, not to let her in, but to call the police on her. What you are about to hear is a story that will challenge everything you think you know about honesty, about poverty, and about the choices people make when nobody is watching. This is the story of a woman named Zuri. And what she did with that wallet did not just change her life, it changed the life of the man who owned it. And it might just change the way you see the world after you hear it. But to understand why Zuri was standing outside that mansion with bare feet and a baby growing inside of her, we need to go back. Back to the day everything fell apart. 6 months before she stood at that gate, Zuri Okafor had a life. It was not a glamorous life. It was not an easy life, but it was hers. She worked as a housekeeper at a hotel on the north side of the city, the kind of hotel where businessmen held conferences and tourists stayed for the weekend. She cleaned rooms. She scrubbed bathrooms. She folded towels so tight you could bounce a coin off them. She earned just enough to pay rent on a small studio apartment above a laundromat on 8th Street. The hot water only worked half the time, and the ceiling leaked when it rained. But it was hers. She had a door she could lock. She had a bed she could sleep in. And that meant everything to a woman who had grown up bouncing between foster homes since she was 9 years old. Zuri never knew her father. Her mother passed away from complications of pneumonia when Zuri was 8. After that, there was no family to take her in. No aunts, no uncles, no grandparents are willing to step forward. The system swallowed her up and moved her from home to home, city to city, until she aged out at 18, with nothing but a garbage bag full of clothes and $200 from a social worker who told her good luck. She never went to college. She never had anyone teach her how to open a bank account or write a resume or negotiate a raise. Everything she knew, she taught herself. And she was proud of that. Quietly proud. The kind of pride that does not need applause. The kind that lives in your chest and keeps you walking forward when everything around you says stop. Then she met Deshaun. He was a delivery driver for a furniture company. He had a wide smile and a deep laugh, and he always brought her food when he came to see her. Containers of jollof rice from the West African restaurant on MLK Boulevard. Slices of sweet potato pie wrapped in foil. Little things that cost almost nothing, but meant almost everything. For the first time in her life, Zuri felt like somebody was choosing her, not out of obligation, not because the state was paying them, but because they wanted to. When she found out she was pregnant, she was terrified, but Deshaun told her not to worry. He said they would figure it out together. He said he was not going anywhere. He held her hand and looked her in the eye and made promises that she let herself believe. And for about 4 months, she believed him. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Zuri came home from work and found the apartment half empty. Deshaun's clothes were gone, his shoes, his phone charger, the little Bluetooth speaker he used to play music while he cooked, the jacket he always left draped over the kitchen chair, all of it, gone. No note, no explanation, no goodbye. She called his phone and the number was disconnected. She went to the furniture company the next morning, and they told her he had quit 2 weeks earlier. 2 weeks! He had been planning this for 2 weeks, and he sat across from her every evening during that time and smiled and talked about baby names like nothing was wrong. Zuri sat on the edge of the bed that night with her hand on her stomach and cried until her throat burned. She was 5 months pregnant, alone, and the rent was due in 9 days. She tried to keep going. She picked up extra shifts at the hotel. She skipped meals to save money. She sold the little television Deshaun had left behind and used the cash to cover half the rent. She sold her winter coat even though she knew she would need it soon. But it was not enough. It was never enough. The hotel cut her hours because they said she was getting too far along in her pregnancy to keep up with the physical work. Her supervisor pulled her aside one afternoon and said, "Honey, we are not trying to be mean, but you can barely bend over to make the beds." Then the landlord slid an eviction notice under her door. 30 days. She went to his office and begged him for more time. She told him she was pregnant. She told him she had nowhere to go. He looked at her belly, and then he looked at his desk and said, "Business is business." On the 29th day, Zuri packed what she could into a backpack, walked out of that apartment for the last time, and became homeless. Now, I want you to stop for a second. I want you to really think about what that means. Not the word homeless, the experience of it. Imagine you are pregnant. Imagine your back aches and your ankles are swollen, and you have not eaten a full meal in 2 days. Imagine it is October, and the nights are getting colder, and you have nowhere to go. No shelter bed available. No friend's couch to crash on. No family to call. Just you and the baby inside you, and a backpack with 3 changes of clothes and a toothbrush. That was Zuri's life, every single day. And I want you to hold that image in your mind as you listen to the rest of this story. Because it matters. It matters that you understand exactly where she was standing when the choice came. She slept in parks. She slept behind churches. She slept in the back row of a 24-hour laundromat until the owner noticed and told her to leave. She found a women's shelter downtown that had space for 3 nights, but the waiting list after that was over 2 weeks long. So she was back on the street. She ate from soup kitchens when she could find them open. She drank water from public fountains. She washed her face in gas station bathrooms and dried her hair with paper towels. She kept herself as clean as possible because she was terrified that if she looked too rough, someone would call Child Protective Services before her baby was even born. That fear kept her moving. It kept her standing up straight when all she wanted to do was curl up on the ground and disappear. She talked to her baby constantly. At night, when the city got quiet and the cold crept in, she would press her hand against her belly and whisper. She would say, "We are going to be okay. Mama is going to figure this out. I do not know how yet, but I am going to figure it out. I promise you." Sometimes the baby would kick while she was talking, and Zuri would smile in the dark and pretend that was the baby's way of saying, "I believe you." She needed somebody to believe her, even if it was somebody who had not been born yet. Before we go deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you are new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. It was a Thursday evening, about 3 weeks after Zuri had lost her apartment. She was sitting on a bench near the fountain in Prescott Park, the kind of park that sits right in the middle of the business district where men in suits walk past carrying briefcases and talking into phones that cost more than she used to earn in a month. The air smelled like roasted chestnuts from a vendor across the street and exhaust fumes from the buses rolling past. Zuri was watching the water in the fountain because it calmed her down. The sound of it. The way the light caught the spray and turned it gold in the late afternoon sun. She was trying not to think about how hungry she was. Her stomach had stopped growling about an hour ago, and she knew from experience that meant her body had given up asking. And then she saw it. A wallet. Brown leather. Sitting right there on the ground about 6 feet from the bench, half hidden under a newspaper that the wind had blown against the base of a trash can. She looked around. Nobody was nearby. Nobody was searching their pockets or looking panicked. The park was almost empty. She picked it up and opened it, and her heart nearly stopped. There was money inside. A lot of money. She counted it twice because her hands were trembling so badly she kept losing count. $2,800 in crisp $100 bills. There were credit cards, a business card with gold lettering, and a driver's license with a photograph of a man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. The name read Marcus Ezechifor. Now, if you lived in that city, you knew that name. Marcus Ezechifor was the founder and CEO of Pinnacle Development Group, one of the largest real estate companies in the state. He built shopping malls and apartment complexes and office towers. His face was on billboards along the highway. His company donated to hospitals and schools and youth programs. He had been featured in magazine profiles and television interviews. He was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and his wallet was sitting in the hands of a pregnant homeless woman who had not eaten since yesterday morning. Think about that. Really think about it. She sat on that bench for almost 40 minutes. She held the wallet in her lap and she stared at it. She opened it again and looked at the money. She ran her thumb along the edge of the bills. She even took $100 bill out and held it up to the fading light, just feeling the weight of it in her fingers. She thought about a warm bed. She thought about a plate of food so full she could not finish it. She thought about buying a tiny outfit for her baby, something soft and new that did not come from a donation bin. Then she put the bill back. She put it back because of something her mother told her when she was 6 years old, almost 2 decades before her mother died. Her mother had taken her to a grocery store. It was a Saturday. Zuri remembered the fluorescent lights and the smell of overripe bananas near the entrance. She had found a $5 bill on the floor near the checkout counter. She picked it up and put it in her pocket and smiled like she had won a prize. Her mother saw her do it, and her mother knelt right there in the aisle, looked her in the eye and said, "Baby, that is not ours." It does not matter that nobody saw you pick it up. God saw. And more importantly, you saw. Do not teach yourself that taking from others is okay just because it is easy. Zuri was 6 years old when she heard those words. She was 26 years old when she understood what they truly meant. Zuri put the wallet in her backpack, she stood up from the bench, and she decided she was going to return it. Not tomorrow, not when it was convenient, right now. Zuri did not return that wallet because she wanted something in return. She returned it because she could not live with herself if she did not. She was broke. She was hungry. She was pregnant and sleeping on benches. But she was not a thief. And that was the one thing the world had not taken from her yet. That was the one thing she still owned completely. Her integrity. The next morning, Zuri took a bus across the city. She used the last $1.60 she had in change to pay the fare. The coins were warm from being held in her fist all night. She did not know exactly where Marcus Ejiofor lived, but the business card in the wallet had an address for the corporate headquarters of Pinnacle Development Group. She figured she would start there. She rode the bus for 45 minutes, watching the neighborhoods change outside the window. Zuri pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the bus window and watched it all pass by like a movie about someone else's life. She got off at the closest stop and walked another 20 minutes until she found the address. But it was not a corporate office. It was a mansion. A private residence with a stone driveway lined with oak trees and a gate that looked like it belonged to a castle. Zuri stood outside that gate for a long time before she pressed the buzzer. She knew how she looked. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the polished metal panel next to the intercom. Her hair was matted on one side from sleeping against a bench. There was a smudge of dirt on her cheek. Her dress hung loose everywhere except her belly. Her feet were bare and cracked, with a small cut on her right heel that she had been ignoring for days. She knew what the people inside would see when they looked at her. A dirty, barefoot, pregnant woman with a backpack and desperate eyes standing outside a billionaire's home. She almost turned around. She almost walked away and mailed the wallet instead. But she pressed a button. A voice came through the intercom, male, sharp, impatient. "Who is this?" Zuri leaned toward the speaker and said, "My name is Zuri. I found a wallet that I think belongs to the man who lives here. I just want to return it." There was a long pause. She could hear static through the speaker and what sounded like muffled voices in the background. Then the voice said, "Stay where you are." About 3 minutes later, 2 security guards came walking down the driveway. They were big men in dark suits with earpieces and expressions that made it very clear they did not trust her. One of them asked her to hand over the wallet. She did. He opened it slowly, looked through it, counted the money bill by bill, checked the credit cards, and examined the ID. Then he looked at her. He looked at her belly. He looked at her feet, and he said, "Wait here." in a tone that sounded more like a warning than a request. The other guard stayed behind, standing about 10 feet away from her with his arms crossed, watching her like she might try to climb the fence. Another 10 minutes passed. Zuri was tired. Her back hurt. Her feet throbbed. She leaned against the stone pillar next to the gate and closed her eyes. She could hear birds in the trees lining the driveway and the distant sound of a lawnmower somewhere on the property. She told herself it did not matter what happened next. She had done the right thing. That was enough. That had to be enough. Then she heard footsteps on the gravel. She opened her eyes and saw a man walking down the driveway. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with silver hair and reading glasses perched on top of his head. He was wearing a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows and gray slacks and leather shoes that probably cost more than every piece of clothing Zuri had ever owned combined. It was him, Marcus Ejiofor. And he was walking toward her with a look on his face that she could not quite read. It was not anger. It was not pity. It was something closer to curiosity, like he was trying to solve a problem he had not expected to encounter on a Friday morning. If this story has you still watching, comment, "I'm still watching." Let's see who stays until the very end. He stopped on the other side of the gate and looked at her for what felt like a very long time. Then he said, "You found my wallet." Zuri nodded. He said, "My security team tells me everything is still in it. Every dollar, every card." Zuri nodded again. He tilted his head slightly and said one word. "Why?" And Zuri, who was exhausted and hungry and barely standing up straight, looked him in the eye and said, "Because it is not mine. That is all. It is not mine." There was a silence between them that lasted about 5 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes. The kind of silence where two strangers are measuring each other. Then, Marcus Ejiofor did something that surprised both of them. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a remote, and opened the gate himself. He stepped through it, and he said, "When was the last time you ate?" Zuri tried to answer, but her voice cracked. Her eyes filled up, and she pressed her lips together hard because she did not want to cry in front of this man. She did not want his pity. She just wanted to return his wallet and leave. But her body betrayed her. A tear rolled down her cheek, and she wiped it away fast with the back of her hand. Marcus did not push her. He did not ask again. He just turned to one of his security guards and said, "Bring the car around. We are going inside." And then he looked at Zuri and said, "Please, come in." She followed him up the driveway and into a house that was bigger than any building she had ever been inside that was not a hotel or a hospital. The floors were marble, the kind that echoed when you walked. The ceilings were high enough that her voice bounced when she whispered "thank you." There were paintings on the walls and gold frames, and a staircase that curved upward like something from a movie. A woman in a uniform brought her a glass of cold water and a plate of food: grilled chicken, rice, roasted vegetables, and bread with real butter. Zuri ate so fast she almost choked. She had to force herself to slow down. Marcus sat across from her at a long dining table made of dark wood and watched her eat without saying a single word. He did not rush her. He did not make small talk. He just let her eat. When she was done, he poured her another glass of water and asked her to tell him her story. And she did. She told him everything. The foster homes, her mother died when she was 8, aging out of the system with nothing, the hotel job, Deshaun and the promises he broke, the eviction, the park bench, the soup kitchens and the shelters have no room. All of it. She did not embellish. She did not exaggerate. She did not ask for sympathy. She just told the truth, plainly and quietly, the way someone speaks when they have stopped trying to impress anyone and just want to be heard. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a long time. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his jaw and stared at the ceiling like he was having a conversation with himself that she could not hear. Then he said something that changed the entire course of the conversation. He said, "I know what it feels like to have nothing." Zuri looked at him. This man is sitting in a mansion with marble floors and original artwork on the walls, and a fleet of cars in the garage. This man whose company was worth more money than Zuri could count. And he was telling her he knew what it felt like to have nothing? Marcus told her that when he was 19 years old, he was sleeping in his car, a beat-up Oldsmobile with a cracked windshield and no heat. He had grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment with his mother and 4 siblings on the south side of the city. His mother worked 2 jobs, one at a dry cleaner's and one at a nursing home, and she still could not keep the lights on some months. When she died of a stroke during his senior year of high school, the family scattered. His older brother went to stay with a cousin out of state. His sisters went into foster care. Marcus dropped out 3 months before graduation. He worked at gas stations and warehouses and construction sites, taking whatever paid cash at the end of the day. He slept in that Oldsmobile for almost a year, parking behind churches and shopping plazas, before a man named Reverend Coleman at a church on 5th Street found him one morning shivering in the parking lot and said, "Son, come inside." That man gave Marcus a place to stay, helped him get his GED, and connected him with a construction foreman who gave him his first real job. That man believed in him when nobody else did, and Marcus never forgot it. He looked at Zuri across that table and said, "I have spent 30 years building this company, and in all that time, the thing I am most proud of is not the buildings, or the money, or the magazine covers. It is the fact that I never forgot where I came from. And you just proved to me that character does not have an income requirement. You had every reason to keep that wallet. You were hungry. You were pregnant. You were sleeping outside. And you still walked across the city to give it back. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." What happened next did not happen overnight. This is not a fairy tale where one good deed erases years of hardship in a single afternoon. Real life does not work that way, and this story would not mean anything if I pretended it did. But what Marcus did was this. He picked up his phone and made a call. Then he made another one. And by the end of that day, Zuri had a room. Not a shelter bed, not a motel with thin walls and stained carpets. A room in a small, clean apartment that Pinnacle Development Group owned and used for employee relocations. It was on the 3rd floor of a quiet building near the park where she used to sleep. It had a bedroom and a kitchen and a bathroom with a shower that had good water pressure. It had a window that let in the morning sun, and for the first time in almost a month, Zuri slept in a bed with clean sheets and a pillow that did not smell like concrete. She cried herself to sleep that night, not from sadness, from relief so deep it broke something open inside her chest that she had been holding shut for weeks. Over the following weeks, Marcus connected Zuri with a social worker who specialized in housing assistance. He arranged for her to receive prenatal care at a clinic that his company helped fund. He made sure she had groceries delivered and that she had a phone so she could call for help if she needed it. And he offered her a job. Not charity, not a handout, a real position in the mailroom at Pinnacle's corporate office, starting after her baby was born, with full benefits, a steady schedule, and a path to advancement. He told her, "I am not giving you anything. I am giving you an opportunity. What you do with it is up to you." He did not do any of this for the cameras. He did not post about it on social media. He did not call the news. He simply saw someone who was honest and struggling, and he decided to help. Because someone had once done the same for him, and he had promised himself a long time ago that he would pay it forward when the moment came. And here is the part that makes this story more than just a nice moment. Zuri took that job. She showed up every single day. She arrived before her shift started, and she left after it ended. She learned the systems. She asked questions. She studied the way the office worked, who did what, how things moved, and where the bottlenecks were. She stayed late to finish tasks nobody asked her to finish. Within 6 months, she moved from the mailroom to the front desk. Within a year, she was working in the administrative office, handling scheduling and logistics for one of the regional managers. The same way she had taught herself everything else in her life, she taught herself how to succeed in a corporate environment. Marcus noticed. Her co-workers noticed. Everyone noticed. Because Zuri worked like she had something to prove. And she did. She had something to prove to herself. That she was more than what had happened to her. That she was more than the worst chapter of her story. Her son was born on a cold morning in December, 3 days before Christmas. She named him Kofi. He was 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with big brown eyes and tiny fingers that wrapped around her thumb the first time she held him. The nurse placed him on her chest, and Zuri looked down at her baby in that hospital room and made a promise that she whispered so quietly, only he could hear it. She said, "You will never wonder if somebody loves you. You will never fall asleep wondering where you will be tomorrow. You will never feel like you do not belong somewhere. And you will know from the very first day of your life that your mama fought for you with everything she had." 1 year after Zuri stood outside that iron gate with bare feet and a wallet full of money that was not hers, her life looked nothing like it did before. She had an apartment, a real one, that she paid for with her own paycheck. She decorated it herself. There was a small bookshelf by the window with children's books she had started collecting from thrift stores. There was a framed photo on the kitchen wall of her mother, the only photograph she still had, smiling in a yellow dress. She had a son who was healthy and growing and laughing at everything, and who had just started pulling himself up on the furniture. She had a job that gave her purpose and stability and pride. And she had something she had never had before in her entire life: a mentor. Marcus Ezejifor checked in on her every few weeks, not as a boss, not as a charity case, as someone who understood what it meant to rebuild yourself from nothing. He told her once, over coffee in the break room at Pinnacle's office, "You did not just return a wallet that day, Zuri. You reminded me of why I do what I do. You reminded me that the most powerful thing in the world is not money. It is someone who does the right thing when they have every reason not to." And here's what I want you to take away from this story. Zuri did not get rewarded because the universe owed her something. She did not get a better life because karma wrote her a check. She got noticed because her character spoke louder than her circumstances. She was homeless, she was pregnant, she was starving, and she still chose to do the right thing. Not because someone was watching, not because she expected anything in return, but because that was who she was, down to her bones. That was who her mother raised her to be, even in the short time they had together. If you are watching this right now and you are going through something hard, something that makes you feel invisible, something that makes you wonder whether being a good person even matters when the world keeps knocking you down, I want you to hear this. It matters. It always matters. Not because good things are guaranteed to come back to you. Life does not work like a vending machine where you put in a good deed and a reward falls out. But it matters because the person you become in your worst moments is the person you truly are. And that person is worth everything. That person is the foundation of everything you will ever build. Let me know in the comments what part of Zuri's story hit you the hardest. Was it the moment she found the wallet and held that $100 bill in her fingers? Was it the memory of her mother in the grocery store? The moment Marcus told her he had been homeless too? Or was it Zuri whispering promises to her baby in the dark? I want to know. Because stories like this do not just belong to Zuri. They belong to all of us. They remind us that character is not something you have when life is comfortable. Character is what you show when life is breaking you down and you still choose to stand up straight. Share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories like this.